Can't have you sitting in the middle of my runway, Hoss. Respond. Over. This is Buck Kendall trying you again. 101. Bravo, Lima. You gotta prove it. I mean now, not later.
It was a cold and dreary night. A rural airfield has been infiltrated by an unknown aircraft and its mysterious pilot. A black Cessna Skymaster remains grounded as a heavy fog conceals the plane. Beacons and spotlights help illuminate the after-dark intruder. Airfield attendant Buck Kendall advises the enigmatic aviator to leave the premises, but he doesn't receive a response. Buck investigates the plane and discovers curtains covering the windows and thick blood smeared all over the plane's side panel. The Skymaster's passenger door creaks open, almost inviting Buck Kendall closer to hell. The smell of death lures Buck inside as a grisly cockpit disturbs him. The silent night is interrupted as the sound of the airplane's door smashes Buck's head and breaks the serenity. Discombobulated, Buck is further harmed as multiple slash marks swiftly appear on his face. A tall silhouette engulfs the space before him. Buck reaches for his flashlight, and what he discovers is something not of this world. On this dreadful night, Buck Kendall recognizes evil is real and his life will arrive at its most unfortunate conclusion.
Never believe what you publish. And never publish what you believe.
We are taken to the inside of Inside View, a tabloid that does nothing but fearmonger, muckrake, and take the most outlandish conspiracy theories and spread them as the truth. But what kind of disgusting individual would find themselves working at a place like that? Unfortunately, our main character, Richard Dees, an abrasive asshole who wants nothing more than to get the story and tell the story like he wants it. We quickly find out that Richard Dees has next to no morals and absolutely no scruples when he divulges that he took a picture of a dead baby by sneaking into a morgue. But it seems the tabloid has screwed up and printed his story without the dead baby picture. And of course, he has to take his anger out on the head honcho himself, Mr. Morrison. Now, Mr. Morrison is currently in a bit of a training session, talking through what he wants to see story-wise from the new hire at Inside View, who, in this person, is our second main character, Catherine Blair. Now, on first glance, Catherine doesn't seem anything like Dees. She's innocent, and there's a bit of naivete behind her. However, there's an underlying layer, a secret darker side to Catherine that we've yet to see. So Dees storms in, and Catherine leaves. And then Mr. Morrison wants to give Dees a story covering a serial killer going around in a small plane, killing people all over the country, who we discovered goes by the alias Dwight Renfield. A little too on the nose, if we're being honest. And Dees agrees. He doesn't want to take the story. In a last-ditch effort, though, to get him to take it, Mr. Morrison decides to insult Dees' work and calls it mediocre. Now, this angers Dees because all he has is his stories. All he has is his work. And so he storms out and goes to a local bar. However, he is trailed by Catherine, who then enters the bar and decides to try to get some friendly advice from Dees. Some words of wisdom, some encouragement, to which Dees isn't too happy to do so. He doesn't want friendship. He's not looking for any of that. But he does deliver some great wisdom with an incredible quote. Never believe what you publish and never publish what you believe. Now, this quote is a perfect encapsulation of Dees as a character because he's a cynical asshole who does not believe in the stories he's peddling. He doesn't care either. He's just doing what he can to get through the day and get that sweet, sweet paycheck. But he's driven. He's driven by all the disgusting things he's seeing. He doesn't know it. It's infected him. It's all he is. And it's a sad existence, but he just can't see it. And this is when Dees tells the story of what happened to the previous reporter, who, after about a year working at the paper, the stories got to her and she committed suicide. And Dees starts to show actual human emotion as he tells this story. But we're quickly showed that Dees actually snapped the photos of this reporter's dead body. Because at the end of the day, he only cares about the story, and the story drives him. And without the story, Dees is nothing. And yet, he pretends not to care. More than anything, Catherine's disgusted by Dees' words. She hasn't yet slipped into the darkness of the job as Dees has. So she runs out of the bar. From here, we cut to yet again a very familiar plane on a small runway as a woman sits outside her trailer park home who seems to be mesmerized. And mesmerized she is, because while she's staring up at the stars, her husband is being brutally ripped apart. She enters her trailer, still in her daze, as her husband calls out, begging for help, crying for salvation, but of course none comes. And then our creature turns its attention to the mesmerized old woman, and when it cuts away, we assume the worst has occurred.
The next morning, Dees walks into Morrison's office, who has a shit-eating grin on his face, ready to cut the balls off of Dees. He gloats as another murder happened, telling him that maybe he's just not cut out for the job, as it is either a young man, or rather, a young woman's job. See, Catherine was already making headway on the story. Morrison gloats as Dees takes the bait and the story. Dees goes to the airport where Claire Bowie was murdered. There, he meets Ezra Hartman, an old airplane mechanic who looks and sounds like he needs to retire. Ezra tells Dees of the night the night flyer arrived. Ezra says the man was strange, with a cloak that was black as a woodchuck's asshole, looking like bat wings. How the fuck do you know what a woodchuck's asshole looks like? Next morning, when Ezra saw Claire cleaning the plane, he tells him he's just doing his part for Dwight Renfield from Derry. Ezra, with dark rings around his eyes, seemingly hypnotized, continued to clean the plane. Next time we see Claire, his throat was bitten off, head barely attached to his body. Ezra noticed dirt and worms on the ground under the luggage bay. I fucking hate. Our boy Dees then heads to the cemetery to find Claire's tombstone, where he proceeds to show the sleazy side of his reporting, swapping out the fresh flowers for dead ones and just throwing them on the mound. This motherfucker kicks the headstone to knock it out of place, and then he cuts himself and wipes the blood on the tombstone, all for that perfect picture. You fucked up, Dees. Dwight Renfield connected with you. Later that night, as Dees is typing his story, he starts to hear footsteps from outside. As Dwight Renfield was in the room, sight, that was just a nightmare. He discovers on his window, written in blood, the words, "Stay away." With that warning, Dees, nope, he's not fazed. He continues on with his story. Dees makes it to New York to see the body of Buck Kendall. The mortician pulls the sheet off Buck's face, exposing deep gashes across his face. He wanted to find the bite marks, and when he sees them, he starts salivating as he takes his photos. Later, as Dees listens to Ezra's recording, he keeps rewinding to something that Ezra says, and this is how Dwight Renfield was named. Morrison loves the name. Dees proceeds to tell him that the bite marks are not the average bite marks, but massive holes. Morrison then demands photos and some stories so he can print, of which Dees pretty much tells him to fuck off. Morrison then sets his sights on Catherine. You see, Catherine had been working on the story all along. That asshole Morrison, he gives her the name Night Flyer, which she happily types into her computer. Morrison then tells Catherine if she wants the story, she has to go and get it, and to beat Dees. And to beat Dees, she has to play it the same way Dees does.
I like to eat the peanut butter first.
There's no wrong way to eat a Reese's.
Dees, on to the next murder, makes a pit stop where he sees a multi-car accident with dead bodies on the road. This asshole kicks the arm off a girl's face just so he can take the photo. He speaks with a gas attendant who tells him Ray looks sick with dark rings around his eyes and that Ellen had not been herself. Then he speaks to Celinda, who does Ellen's hair. Ellen was not herself. She was glowing like a schoolgirl with a crush, She wanted to look beautiful and sexy for her mysterious guest. Dees pretends to be an FBI agent. Shit, this dude is grimy and smart. Pretending to be an FBI agent, he speaks to the police officer, who tells him what he saw at the Sarges. Simultaneously, we see Dees kicking in the police tape door. The officer tells him he found Ray without a head and a warning about a plane, the same plane that had been there all day and all night. And when they find Ellen, she's laying there peaceful, not a drop of blood or a drop of blood in sight. Dees noticed all the mirrors were broken inside the Sarge's house and heads to leave, but not before Cujo, who was sitting on the top of the house, starts to run after Dees. When Dees gets in his car and looks around, he doesn't see the dog. The dog is back on the roof, and when Dees leaves, the dog is not even there anymore.
Dees decides it's a good time to check in with fake-ass Jeffrey Combs and knock a few back. To his surprise, a mysterious stranger had gifted him a tall glass of viscera. Dwight Renfield. Dees' heart begins to pump out of his chest. He doesn't do threats well, it seems. After harassing the bartender, Dees runs outside, cursing at Dracula like a madman. Oh shit, wrong motherfucker. Dwight flies overhead as Dees yells, "Fuck you, Dwight. He ain't stopping."
The Schlegg security system. It won't cost you an arm and a neck.
Dees arrives back at his hotel to discover Catherine just happens to be there. What the fuck are you doing here? The colorful language pursues Dees around like flies on shit. Catherine stands up for herself and reveals how much further along she is to securing Renfield. Dees, the master manipulator that he is, convinces Catherine to set their differences aside and amalgamate their efforts so they can finally reveal Ariel Nosferatu. Catherine accepts Dees' offer, and the two soon work diligently, attempting to locate their famed murderer in a cape. Many hang-ups and stogies later, Catherine finally has a hit as Dees communicates with airport security. However, the two rivals both sense that something was wrong. That motherfucker was full of shit. To Catherine's surprise, Dees ambushes his Jimmy and locks her in a closet, revealed he never intended on sharing his byline with her. She warns Dees not to lose himself in this horror story. His own advice falls on deaf ears. Catherine pleads, but the bitter journalist takes to the skies anyway. Dees enters the airspace and is quickly told to turn around by an unfamiliar voice over the radio. The barbarous sounds of death can be heard over the crackling radio speakers. Richard Dees has finally found the Night Flyer. Upon landing, Dees discovers the infamous black Cessna Skymaster docked at the airport. Dees captures the plane's images before snooping around the dreaded cockpit. Inside the vehicle, Dees uncovers dry blood, photographs, and his own papers soiled and warmth-infused dirt. And what comes next will haunt Dees for the rest of his life. The unmistakable odor of copper makes it difficult to breathe. Countless slaughtered bodies, both young and old, decorate the bloody floors meticulously. The mutilated flesh is illuminated with each passing lightning bolt. The roaring thunder only adds to the ticking anxiety. Photograph after photograph, deceased after deceased. Dees' psyche finally begins to crumble as he's just about seen enough misery.
Dees, after slipping on a massive puddle of blood, stumbled into the bathroom. Distraught, he attempts to gather himself and empty his stomach on the porcelain sink. Washing the horror off his hands and face, he seeks silence that lasts a mere second. The first step penetrates his spine. The second pierces his soul. The crimson liquid splatters on the urinal, painting a story of fright. Mirror after mirror cracks with invisible force as Dwight lingers behind a shattered Dees. Dwight, The relaxing tone in his voice gives Dees an ominous warning, sparing his life in exchange for the portraits of Dwight's plight of terror. Dwight offers Dees brotherly comfort with a course of reminders of what he will do if Dees persists. Dees, unrelenting in his thirst for the truth, pleads for Dwight to reveal himself, a need Dees requires to fulfill his own appetite. Dwight acknowledges and feeds Dees' desires as he slits his wrist to show Dees what he truly wants to see. Drinking from the grotesque wrist, Dees consumes the blood while Dwight gives Dees the sight to see what hell was truly like. The world Dees knew dies, the transition of life to deathly gray. A cloud hovers over the floor as the victims of Dwight's arise and surround Dees. One after another approach Dees as he shatters a glass window to remove a clean axe, while the tormented taunt him into a tantrum of rage. Swing after swing, Dees carves a path of survival until he hears the voice of the living. Two officers demand Dees to cease and desist. Dees, believing Dwight got them too, lunges at the officers as a barrage of bullets pierces his body as he collapses to the ground amongst the others.
The violent storm persists as Catherine arrives at the grisly scene. The law enforcement keeps her at bay. Her curiosity begs for more, and here she is, confronting her own demons and awakening a fire inside. Just outside, Dwight makes his concluding exit, the lightning crashing, cloaking one monster and revealing another. Catherine wanted the inside view on Inside View, and through Dees, she's discovered it. Never believe what you publish, and never publish what you believe. Dwight Renfield no longer exists. Richard Dees, the Night Flyer, will live on forever.